Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Michael Ploog's adaptation of Mark Twain's The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. This was made for First Comics Classics Illustrated line in 1990. And it's just another one of those great Classics Illustrated from this time where they just find the perfect artist for each story. They didn't do it all the time, but for the most part, you know, like getting Bill Sienkiewicz to do Moby Dick. We looked at that last year. Just so many good pair-ups they did. Really good stuff. But this one is over the top. This is so beautiful, the art in this. This is just gorgeous artwork. You can tell just by this cover just how nice it is. Fully painted by Michael Ploog. And he adapted it as well. Let's crack it open. Even the title page is gorgeous. We have a little introductory page telling us about the history of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and its place in literary history and Mark Twain's oeuvre. And let's start the comic. Guys, look at this. It's so fucking beautiful. I love this shit. We start off in St. Petersburg, Missouri, a very small town by the Mississippi. And we see young Tom Sawyer is playing hooky once again. And this guy passing by says, "I heard your aunt calling for you. You better hurry home." So Tom Sawyer was orphaned as a youngster. So his Aunt Polly's been raising him. She's like a mother to him. And she's a sweet old lady. But she's very vexed by Tom Sawyer's ne'er-do-wellery. He misbehaves a lot. But he's a good-hearted kid, and she knows it. She loves him. God, this is so nice. Look at this. We could really see some of the Will Eisner influence on Ploog. Ploog was basically his apprentice, his assistant when he was a young man. The colors are just so rich in this. It's really nice. So Tom Sawyer's got a half-brother, and he's kind of a little rat. He's the little goody two-shoes brother who always squeals on Tom, tries to get him in trouble. He does this a lot in the comic. I love this. Instead of like having a big word balloon with all this, language in it, he does this kind of technique where the background, it's as if they're moving through space and time, but they're not. They're just having this conversation. So I guess they're moving through time, of course. But kind of interesting. It's kind of a neat technique. Tom Sawyer just can't help getting in trouble. He meets this kid and he just starts picking a fight with him. And look at this great little tussle, the way he draws it. So Tom sneaks back into his bedroom and Polly catches him. Once again, she's pretty sharp. And so once again, he gets punished. He's got to whitewash this wall. Aunt Polly gives him a mop. And she says, "You're going to spend all day Saturday working." And this is that famous story from Tom Sawyer where he's a crafty kid. So all these kids pass him by are like, "What are you doing, Tom?" And he makes it seem like it's the funnest thing in the world. And it gets to the point where these kids are just like, "Shit, can I help? I kind of want to whitewash a wall." And so they end up trading shit to him. Like an apple and a dead frog. These were valuable things to a young boy back then. A tin soldier with a head and one arm missing. And he gets all the neighborhood kids to whitewash the wall and give him presents, and he just sits back and watches. and they're all happy to do it. So many just beautiful panels. I mean, every panel is pretty beautiful in this. Just little things like this. Throw away just the background of the porch here. So well drawn, everything. And I just can't get over the colors. This looks so good to me. It's like a beautiful old children's book. So now we meet one of Tom's best friends, Huck Finn. And Huckleberry Finn is an orphan who basically he just wanders about. He's a hobo. He's a child hobo. He's homeless, and all the kids envy him, and they wish they could be him because he gets to live free. He doesn't have to take a bath every Saturday night and go to school, and he loves it. Almost all the parents in town are just like, they don't want any of their kids talking to Huck Finn. He's a bad influence. But he's a good guy. So that day in school, there's a new student. And I think her name's Becky. Yes, Becky Thatcher. And Tom is instantly smitten with her. But he's late for class and he gets a thrashing. That's what teachers could do back then. And as punishment, he says, go sit with the girls. But Tom loves it because he sits right next to Becky. And he begins his flirtation with her. This is kind of a cute scene. This like young puppy love. And so Becky meets him after school, and they agreed to be engaged. Not literally, of course. That would be weird. But you know how little kids are. They basically profess their love for each other. I'm sure it's all make-believe, but they seem to like each other. It's very sweet. But then Tom says something to piss her off. And she ends up saying, I hate you. And Tom is so sad. He screwed it up. He thinks about running away, becoming a pirate. So that night, he agreed to meet Huck. He's going to sneak out. They're going to go to the graveyard and do this weird ritual. If you have a dead cat, and if you go to a grave at midnight and do some rigmarole, supposedly all your warts will clear up. Tom doesn't even have warts, but Huck does. So he's really into helping him. I love these two panels. Well, there's a bunch of them, but this graveyard at night here, look at that. You can totally see why Mike Ploog was the preeminent monster comic artist of the 70s. Just spooky. It's like Wrightson worthy. Oh, and the colors here of the night sky looks so good. So they're about to do their little ritual, and then they see three men coming. And it's these guys. And it's a doctor and Injun Joe and Old Muff Potter. So both of them are drunk, the two helpers. And I guess the doctor's kind of giving him commands. And he's a grave robber. He's telling him to dig up this body of this guy who just died. And it turns into this big argument. And the argument gets out of hand. And Injun Joe ends up stabbing the doctor while he's tussling with a Muff. The doctor even knocked out Muff. He's unconscious here. God, this is so good looking to me. The action. So Muff wakes up and Injun Joe convinces him that he stabbed the doctor. And, you know, Muff is just like, God, I don't even remember doing it. I can't believe I did that. because Injun Joe used Muff's knife. So Huck and Tom run home in terror, and they vow never to tell anyone about this ever again. Once again, that like flowing, during dialogue. There's no panel borders. Even the cow is drawn well. The next morning, Aunt Polly blames Tom for something he didn't do. And she's crying. She's just like, Tom, I just don't know what to do with you. So it makes Tom want to cry because he loves Aunt Polly. And he meets this other kid, Joe. And Joe says, hey, I'm thinking about running away. And Tom's like, I've been thinking the same thing. And then just to seal the deal, Becky returns the gift that Tom gave to her. So she's basically just saying, this is the kiss off. Screw you. So he's just like, fuck this town. I'm out of here. So they steal this little raft. They make a little pirate flag for it. And they sail down the Mississippi. I hope you guys are seeing this art nicely. I hope you're watching it on a big screen. This is so nice. And of course, they're just having a great time pretending to be pirates. It's every kid's dream. And then one morning, they hear a ferry boat firing its cannon. And I guess they do that when somebody drowns. So they figure out that everyone thinks they must have drowned. They don't know that they've run away. All the townspeople just assume that the three kids drowned because there was a big storm the night they left. But then Tom and Joe start feeling bad. Huck doesn't care. He's got nobody who cares about him, so he doesn't feel weird at all. But Joe and Huck start feeling guilty and like, oh man. So one night, Huck sneaks back into town, into St. Petersburg. And he wants to leave a note for Aunt Polly to let him know he's all right. Once again, these scenes at night, the way they're colored, so nice. And he hears Aunt Polly and the mother of Joe. She's visiting Polly, and they're talking about just how sad they are, and just they're just miserable. Tom hears how much they love them, both of them. So instead of leaving the note, he comes up with another plan, which isn't much of a plan. It's pretty dumb. But a Sunday arrives, and it's the big funeral for all of the kids. And during their funeral, all of a sudden the church door opens, and the three kids come in. Of course, the priest thinks it's a miracle at first. He's like, what the? And then everyone is just very relieved. And Aunt Polly clings Tom to her bosom. She's so happy and relieved. And Joe's parents as well. And Aunt Polly's even happy to see Huck Finn. She's even happy he's alive. So everyone's just so happy. It's just a joyous day. And it seems like Tom kind of cleans up his act. He makes up with Becky. He does better at school. But something's still bothering him because Muff Porter, if you remember, he was the guy who thought he stabbed the doctor due to Injun Joe's lies. He's on trial for murder. And Tom feels bad because he knows the truth. And so Tom goes to the trial to be a witness. And it flips the whole court on its ear. Because everyone thought it was Muff. But he's like, no, it's Injun Joe. And Injun Joe leaps through a window out of the court building and escapes. I don't know if you guys saw this when you were kids. I guess you have to be pretty old. But there was like a very It seemed like a very big TV movie, like they repeated it every year. And it was Tom Sawyer. And the way I remember it, I mean, I trust that this is more faithful than the TV movie, but Injun Joe actually threw a knife at Tom Sawyer, and it just missed him and hit the chair. And I just, for some reason, that scene is so vivid in my memory. Like as a kid, I was just like, oh my God, Injun Joe's so scary. But I guess he didn't really do that in the book, apparently. So, Tom's kind of worried because Injun Joe escaped. There's a huge reward for his head. One night, Huck Finn is sleeping in someone's barn. You know, he sleeps wherever he can. And he overhears Injun Joe talking to this other criminal. And he basically says, I want to hire you to help me. I want to kill this old widow. And basically her husband dicked me over, but he's dead. So I want to get revenge somehow. So he wants to kill this poor innocent widow who didn't even cross him. That's how bad Injun Joe is. And he pays this guy enough money that he's going to do it. He doesn't want to at first, but he gives him so much money. He's like, okay, I'll help you kill this nice old lady. So Huck runs to the house. Runs to the first house he sees. And it's the Welshman and his two sons. He tells them what's going on. They rush to the old widow's house and they see Injun Joe and his accomplice waiting for the lights to be dimmed to attack. And so they scare him off, the Welshman and his two sons. They get the accomplice, but Injun Joe is still free. So it's still a plot device. And then one day all the kids are having a picnic. It's a summer break finally. And they go into this old cave to explore. God, I love this panel right here. Well, I love all the panels, but this... I think Mike Ploog should do a comic about spelunkers. All the kids eventually, go back to the ferry that took them to this picnic. But Tom and Becky are lost. And Becky's crying. And she's like, it's cold in there and she's hungry. And it looks like they might never find their way out. And then so Tom's looking around. He's got a candle. And he finds the corpse of Injun Joe. And he's so startled that he falls off this little cliff. But it's kind of fortuitous because from this angle, he can see that there's an escape from the cave. He sees moonlight. And he gets Becky, and he leads her to safety. He's pretty banged up, though. And Becky is very grateful. So he wakes up like a day or so later in bed, safely in bed. I guess they found him. And he's been healing up. And he's the big hero of the day. The doctor says he's got to stay in bed. But of course, Huck Finn's there, the bad influence. And he convinces him to, once again, sneak out of the house at midnight. Because what he overheard Injun Joe talking about his treasure that is in that cave that Tom was in. So even though Tom's all banged up, he sneaks out with Huck. And they go back to the cave. Once again, they see Injun Joe's corpse, and they see the cross that marks the treasure. They root around for a while, and they find it. It's all of the gold that Injun Joe... It's the gold of the Merle gang. So some gang supposedly buried all their gold there, and they actually found it. So they're heading back to town. And then this guy shows up. And he basically tells Huck Finn that that widow that he saved the life of, she feels obliged to take Huck in and give him a home and have him educated. And on top of that, they're rich. They have this treasure. And so Huck goes to live with the old widow. She's very nice. But, he's got to live like a normal boy. He's got to take baths and go to school. And so finally, the shackles of civilization were too much for him. After 3 weeks, he took off. He ran away so he could live like Huck Finn again. And Tom and Huck walk off into the sunset. And looks like they're going to continue their rapscallion ways. Mark Twain pops up with a little note to the reader. And so ends this chronicle. It being the history of a boy, it must stop here. The story could not go much further without becoming the history of a man. That's a weird little ending. But this comic isn't really, I got to be honest, it's not about the story. Mark Twain's great and all. But, God, the art in this, that's the reason to pick this up. We have a nice biography of Mark Twain, very informative, and of Mike Ploog. And they talk about him being a storyboard artist and designer for movies. He did Good Morning Vietnam, Little Shop of Horrors, Ghostbusters, Black Cauldron, Dark Crystal, The Thing, and 2 of the Superman movies. He also did Melvin and Howard. That's weird. And there you go, guys. That's it for Classics Illustrated, number 9, I believe. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mike Ploog. I bet you guys could find this for not that much. Then again, maybe they never reprinted it. It seems like in the graphic novel boom of the 2000s, where all the school libraries and normal libraries were getting graphic novels, this would have been gold. This content, as it would be known, would have sold like gangbusters. So I don't know if it was ever reprinted. If not, maybe it is kind of sought after, because this is so fucking nice. This is some of the best Mike Ploog art probably ever. So hope you can find it. Happy hunting to you. And I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.